I'd say find somebody else who's doing it and ask them about what they've went through, what are the learning experiences they've gone, what failures they've gone, and just kind of ask lots of questions to somebody who's done it and been there and successfully done it. I've got lots of people who come up to me. For instance, one person goes, "Hey, what do you think about Bitcoins and cryptocurrency?" And they go, "I don't think it's a good idea because it doesn't work." My first comment was, "Well, how do you know? Who did you ask?" And they go, "Well, I asked my buddy of mine." I'm like, "Are they successful in it?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Why'd you ask them? Obviously, it's not going to work if you asked him." So you have to ask people who's doing it and doing it successfully, and somebody who you want to actually emulate. If that's not somebody you want to emulate, don't ask them.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Fong Chua. And Fong was born and raised in Alberta, Canada, and went to college and got a structural engineering degree. Then got a job around 2005 and thought they would work there for the rest of his career. And then, or 2007, 2008, the crash came along and got laid off, and decided to go and get another, or was trying to decide between going and getting another degree or pursuing a business. Ended up getting into real estate and started buying properties. Wrote a book as well. Ended up, I think, writing about 8 books. And then also got into speaking events during COVID and started a podcast. So, with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast.
Awesome, thank you very much. I guess I'm done here, right?
Yep, all of our lives can be summed up into 30 seconds. So I gave kind of the quick intro to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack that a bit and tell us a little bit about your journey, or how your journey got started growing up in Alberta.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, first of all, thank you very much for having me. Always a joy being able to share and connect with people, and I'm always excited to do so. So once again, thank you very much. Well, yeah, as you said, grew up in Edmonton, Alberta. Taught to find a good job, working that job for the rest of my life. So basically, got into engineering. Graduated in 2006 or so. Got my job in structural engineering and thought, hey, this is going to be 40 years of my life. And then very soon after that, the economy that I'm in, once oil is up or down, that's how our economy goes up and down. And during the real estate boom of 2007, everybody was buying real estate, going up, 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 up. And then all of a sudden, 2008 turned around and everything went down. That's when our industry really took a big hit, and was looking at my left, looking to my right, and people were being let go like flies. It was very, very fast. We went from, I think, about 800 some people at that time down to 100 something people. And it was kind of the writing on the wall saying, okay, what if this doesn't work out? What if engineering doesn't work out? What else are you can do? So instead of looking into more technical advancements and getting into grad school and learning more technical advances, picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad. As many of your listeners may know, once you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, you realize, wow, look at this brand new industry or this new business out there that I was not shown or talked about, and hence we got into real estate.
Now, one quick question, just because there is a slight bit of irony in the sense that 2007, 2008, that was the largely due in part to the real estate industry crashing, or at least having a lot of subprime or mortgages and whatnot. And then you turn around and say, great, I'm going to get into real estate. That's where I'm going to make it. So how did did that ever factor into, hey, this is a place is just coming out of a big crash, and is it a good decision or not, or kind of how did you go about making that decision as you're deciding kind of where to go after the layoff?
Well, at that time, you kind of the people that we talked to, obviously, they really wanted to get us into real estate, learning more about that stuff, and say, hey, there's really no good time, no bad time to get into real estate. You just have to start somewhere. So at the time prices were low, it's a good time to get in. When prices are high and you go in, that's probably not good because it's probably gonna come back down. So it actually worked out pretty well to get started at that time because things were very competitive with regards to pricing. You get to negotiate more. So jumping at it that time was actually more beneficial. So that's why we jumped into it. And we kind of figured that if you're looking at history, most businesses, most entrepreneurs, most people who are wealthy has some sort of real estate background or some sort of real estate portfolio inside their investments. And therefore we go, okay, as long as we know something about real estate, I think we would have that in our portfolio somewhere. So we figured, you know what, let's start it, let's try it. So we built our real estate portfolio from 0 properties to about 20 some properties in a few years, and that was something like, wow, this is pretty neat. And what's next, kind of thing. We had a business coach, we had a real estate coach at the time, bounced some ideas off of them, and they go, hey, why don't you start writing a book about what you've been learning? I'm like, okay, great, let's start writing a book. So we wrote our first book, and within that first year of writing that book, we realized, wow, we have so many more information that we want to pass on, that we actually had 3 books written within that first 1 to 1.5 years or so. So then we released those and was okay, now what's next? And like, well, why don't you start speaking? I'm like, oh sure, let's go start.
No, maybe just one quick question, because you keep saying we, which is absolutely understandable. And there's sometimes you say we and it's really just me doing these things, but we sounds like we're a bigger company. And other times it means that you've grown or you expanded the team. So you get into real estate. Kind of walk us through, what was that progression? Was it you doing it on as an individual? Did you join a brokerage? Did you hire on a team as you started to grow? Or kind of what does we mean as you were getting into the real estate?
We is really my wife and I.
Fair enough.
Two of us really wanted to learn more about the industry and get more into business, get more into real estate and into investments. So we did a lot of things together with regards to that. Yeah, so then the speaking started, and then when speaking got to talking at conferences, talking on webinars and whatnot, pandemic came, and then we go, hey, let's start doing a podcast, which is another thing that our coach kind of recommended. So we started doing podcast, and it's been going on for about 3 years now. So it's been a lot of fun.
Now, and that was a pretty quick progression. So maybe rewinding just a little bit. So you got into real estate, sounds like 2008, 2009, somewhere in there.
Yep.
So now walk us through, because let's say 2009, that's over the past 14 years. Have you just continued to double down? In other words, reinvest, continue to expand and to grow and to otherwise, make it better? Or, walk us through a little bit as to how you built the business up over those 14 years.
Yeah, so during that period of time, we just accumulated more and more properties, more of the buy, fix, and holds kind of thing, so that we're getting the cash flow, building up equity with regards to that. But then also start to coach other people into real estate. How do you start buying real estate? How do you expand from like single family homes to fourplexes to multifamily homes and all that kind of stuff? So it just kind of grew from that standpoint. And then from there, I'm always looking for more properties. If the right deal comes to my lap, I'm always willing to look at it. But then I started looking into more of the coaching, the mindset, the speaking, and the podcasting aspect of it.
No, that makes sense. And so maybe just one additional follow-up. Because you started into real estate, now you got into coaching and then into podcasting. Where did the focus, or was that just kind of a natural progression? Or are you saying, hey, this is a good area to expand the business, or it's more lucrative, or it's scratching a personal itch of wanting to do something different? Or kind of what made you decide to go in that direction as opposed to just primarily or exclusively focus on the real estate aspect?
It's more so that I went up to my coach and goes, hey, what's next? My coach goes, hey, why don't you start showing people how to do real estate? Show them how did you start, how you can help them get started, how you can help them grow. And hence I started speaking on stages about real estate. How did you buy your first home? How do you maximize your connections? How do you build relationships and all that kind of stuff? And then that kind of gradually moved on to like a lot of mindset kind of talk too. Because if you don't have the right mindset, it's hard to jump into real estate. As a lot of us are very focused in our technical stuff. Like from my background, nobody talked about real estate. And therefore it's that mindset that goes, okay, can we do this? do we want to jump outside of the norm in our sphere of influences and do something different? And it all starts with mindset. So when I started speaking more about mindset on stage, I'm like, hey, let's do more about this stuff. So I started speaking about that, and then also leadership, and that led on to connecting more and more with other people, which is something else my coach goes, say, why don't you start a podcast to allow yourself to connect with more people around the world? And that kind of happened right when the pandemic started, which means everybody was stuck at home anyways. And it was a great way to connect with people all over the world over Zoom and doing interviews. So it was a great way to build those relationships and really expand my exposure, because with the podcast, then I started speaking overseas, worldwide. So it was great. Still virtually.
So now and one thing I think a lot of times people get into is I think, and I have a podcast as well. For us, it's not a big money maker in the sense of the podcast itself. We don't advertise. We don't have, to be a huge podcast, you have to have an exorbitant amount of followers and then get advertisers and do that. And for the vast majority of podcasts, it's just not, it's not generally feasible. There's a very small subset of podcasts that have that big of an audience to really make it make it worthwhile financially, at least directly. So as you guys were moving into the books and the podcasts and doing the presentations or the public speaking, was that, kind of in assistance to the real estate and building that business, or was it something separate and different that was kind of new routes of building different businesses alongside of it?
So all that stuff kind of comes back to the coaching aspect. So because I do talk about real estate, I do talk about business, I do talk about mindset throughout my speaking and throughout my books, throughout my podcasting, that then generally brings people into, hey, what else can you show me? What else can I learn from you? And then that leads to the coaching aspect.
Makes perfect sense. And I think that's a lot of times a great way is to marry those together. So now you kind of walked us through getting up, and so to where you're at today, a bit today, as far as the business and continuing to expand out in that. So if you're to look kind of now into the future, take the next 6 to 12 months, where do you see things continuing to head? Is it continuing to do public speaking or podcasting or books, or do you have other things that you're looking forward to pursuing, or what's kind of that next 6 to 12 months outlook for you?
Well, for myself, I believe the podcasting will go on for as long as I could keep it going on for. I find that it's a great way to, like I said, build relationships, connect with people. It keeps my mind sharp too, because like you're constantly talking and learning from other people. So that's going to keep on going. Doing the videos will keep on going as well. When there's speaking engagements, I usually say yes to those because it's a great way to really connect with large audiences and again, meet new people. With regards to the business side of things, I'm looking to do more collaborations with other people, collaborations with other coaches, whether they're doing a certain thing with regards to business growth, I could add my elements on stuff with their packages or with their events and their teachings as well, and vice versa. So I like to do a lot of relationship building, a lot of collaborations with other people, and then from my business on my own, I'm still going to expand that as I go from like locally to nationally to worldwide.
Sounds like a lot of fun and exciting opportunities to come, and should make for a fun time for you. So, well, now as we kind of reach the present day of your journey, and even looking a bit into the future, it's always a great time to jump to the two questions I always ask towards the end of each episode. So we'll go to those now. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
Worst business decision I've ever made was probably saying no to opportunities. Because by saying no, you stunt your growth, you stunt your progress. For instance, I was approached to do books before, and I've always said no. And the reason why is, well, who am I to write a book? I'm not there yet. And all this limiting beliefs start coming in, and therefore I didn't progress on it. I've also said no to speaking engagements, thinking, hey, I'm not there yet. Or I've said no to certain real estate investments because I don't believe I can make the deal happen. And the biggest learning experience from that is you're not growing and you're not finding out ways to make it work. At least say yes and then find out what happens. And then if it doesn't go through, hey, you've learned from it. You're now starting at a different starting point for the next time that opportunity comes. And that's something that's consistently coming because I'm always saying yes to something before I completely reject it. So that's one of the biggest things, because I know I've lost out on a lot of big opportunities because I said no.
No, I think that's but and it's one where I think that it is sometimes hard to assess what are the good opportunities. You don't want to just jump at every possible opportunity that comes along, because you can also make mistakes and doing that way, or make bad investments, or jump in too quickly. And so it's always that balance. And so, but I think that you always have the opposite, which is if you are so gun shy, or you aren't willing to take advantage of opportunities, or you aren't willing to pursue them, you can also miss out. So it's interesting to see that figuring out that right balance, and kind of some of that comes along with the making the mistakes of not always knowing what that right balance is early on. So it makes perfect sense, and sounds like a great mistake to learn from. Second question now I always ask is, if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I would say find somebody else who's doing it and ask them about what they've went through, what are the learning experiences they've gone, what failures they've gone, and just kind of ask lots of questions to somebody who's done it and been there and successfully done it. I've got lots of people who come up to me. For instance, one person goes, "Hey, what do you think about Bitcoins and cryptocurrency?" And they go, "I don't think it's a good idea because it doesn't work." My first comment was, "Well, how do you know? Who did you ask?" And they go, "Well, I asked my buddy of mine." I'm like, "Are they successful in it?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Why'd you ask them? Obviously, it's not going to work if you asked him." So you have to ask people who's doing it and doing it successfully, and somebody who you want to actually emulate. If that's not somebody you want to emulate, don't ask them. So if you want to start a small business, if you want to start anything, ask somebody who's already doing it, whether it's with regards to mentorship, coaching, whatever it is. Ask them and then see where that goes. And not just ask that one person, ask somebody else who's also successful in it, and get different viewpoints from people. And then balance it out to see which one works best for you, which one gives you the best challenge, and which one gives you the best opportunity to achieve what you want to do.
No, makes perfect sense, and definitely sounds like a great way to approach things. I think asking just a random person or somebody that's a friend or a buddy, if they happen to be an expert in the industry, great, then you can get some good advice. But I like to your point is, and vice versa, you have to ask the people that are or know what it is, and they may be the ones that the first ones to tell you it's not a good idea, or it's a hard road to hoe, and there are different opportunities, or here's what they would do differently. But I think to ask the experts in the industry of the ones you're looking or interested in is a great takeaway. So, well, awesome. Well, as people want to reach out to you, if they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Well, you can find me on my website, fongchua.com. You could also find me on all the social media platforms, Fong Chua. It's my face is all over the place, so I'm pretty sure you can find me.
All right. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, make a great connection, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again, Fong, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you the listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So let's go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. Couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review, because it really helps us to share these messages with even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else along your journey, reach out to us and just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Thank you again, Fong, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Awesome. Thank you.